to Welcome Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and this is my first update of October. So I finally was able to upload my wrap up because I think I mentioned that I had trouble. I made a little bit of a filming mistake when I first attempted my wrap up for August and September, so I had to redo it. And of course, I try to wait on I don't try, I do. I always film on days when I'm not working because I don't want to be filming anything since I ramble a lot in these videos, so I don't want to film before I go to work because I don't want to waste my morning. I shouldn't say that because I do like filming. I like talking to you guys. But I mean, I don't want to spend my morning because I want to use that time to read or look at other people's videos. And then by the afternoon when I get off work, it's close to the evening, so I don't have time. When we always eat dinner around 6, so even I might have some extra, like if I get off at 4, I'll have a couple hours, but I'm tired and I'm just too drained to film a video. And then, if I get off, and then, on the days when I get off at 5, then I don't really have time. So I always try to wait on a day that I'm off, so I'll have plenty of time to film and talk to you guys and take my time and not sound like I'm bored. Sound like I'm enjoying what I'm talking about. So I had to wait until I had a day off, and I finally have a day. And so I filmed that yesterday, and then I am filming my update video now for you guys. So first, I did talk about some of my current readings, what I'm currently reading during the wrap up, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit in more detail in this video, obviously. Okay, so first, let's talk about what I'm currently reading. These are really, because I did start I already mentioned I started my reread of Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks, but I haven't picked it up in a couple days, so I don't have a lot to say. And I already told you guys I was reading it, so there's no point in repeating that. Which, although I guess I did repeat it, but so these are really the only ones I got to talk about. So I'm slowly making my way through Babel. And because of the 500 page mark, I was a little nervous about not it taking the whole month, kind of like Valley of the Dolls did. And, I don't if I just read one book in the month, then I may as well just do a review of that one book. So I like to read at least more than one book so I can, talk to you guys about the books. I mean, I'm trying not, again, I'm trying not to sound like that's my number one priority is reading multiple books. But I just can't help it. I kind of want to have something more to talk about, There's so many books I want to read off my shelf. So I want to get to all of them, And I know I shouldn't rush my reading, and that's not my intention. Especially, I'm thinking about, that's something I've been thinking about, because podcasts talk about a lot of the reading podcasts will talk about a lot of the same stuff that the people on BookTube that do video essays or discussions on reading problems and all our conflicts, all the things we worry about, and this whole in all the issues that involve readers. And so I just want to have more than one book to talk about in a video, unless I'm just intending to do a review. I mean, I don't know, maybe just doing reviews would be better for me, because doing wrap-ups can be stressful. I mean, like I said, I made a mistake when I saw my wrap-up for August and September, and on my first attempt at filming this, and I was just so mad at myself because I let it happen, and it just really stressed me out, and for a second, I even thought about not doing a wrap-up again. But, but then it would, and maybe it would be easier just to do reviews. and just talk about each book. And maybe that would also motivate me to slow my reading down. So, I mean, I still, like I said, it's still in the back of my mind, the thought. So, I don't know, I might do that. But like I said, I have so many books that I want to read on my shelf that I want to get to. And inevitably, I'm going to always attempt to read more than one book anyway. And, sometimes there are times when, even if you're loving the book, you want to take a break from it, especially if it's a heavy topic. So you want to read something else. But anyway, so Babel, I'm at the, this is getting really, first of all, Professor Lovell is just, every time he comes on the page, I just hate his guts. The way he treats Robin, he's that bully that will manipulate you and say, well, I'm so good to you, and so I'm doing this favor for you, so you should be appreciative. Professor Lovell reminds me of Aunt Norris in Mansell Park, where that woman was constantly guilt tripping Fanny, and being like, you should be more grateful, and your rich relatives took you in, and you had such a crappy, poor life back home. And I mean, she's doing the exact same thing that Professor Lovell is doing to Robin, where he's reminding this kid that your life sucked. You wouldn't have been on the streets. Your whole family was sick. You would just have this horrible life, and now you have such a great life, and you have all these friends. You go to this awesome school, and you get this education, and just every time Robin tries to question him, and is like, and saying that what he's doing with this whole program at Oxford and the silver mining situation, how they're using these silver bars and everything, what they're doing is wrong and everything, and trying to, it's unjust. Every time Robin tries to make that argument, Professor Lovell will just be like, give him reasons why, well, it's not that bad, or, basically, like, manipulate him. And then I don't know if you consider gaslighting or not. Like, gaslighting is making you think that you're making you question I think it's basically making you question yourself. So I think he's kind of gaslighting him. I don't know. I'm like uncertain if I truly get the definition of gaslighting. I don't want to be one of those people who assumes everything is like a lot of things are gaslighting, and then it turns out I don't really understand it at all. Like, I know there's a lot of people that will use words and freely to call someone out on something, and then you realize, and it's like, I don't think you truly understand that word or what that means. And so I don't want to sound like one of those people, but I do think he's gaslighting. He's gaslighting Robin constantly when Robin tries to tell him this is unjust. Because he's also reminding him, not only did he do him this favor of taking him out of this life of poverty and taking him out of this backwards country, but also in backwards country is their word. There's Lovell's words, not mine. I won't call China backwards, but like back where they think, like, the thing is that the English think that China and India and all these other countries are backwards compared to them. They are superior. They have this superiority mentality, which I think in a way Heart of Darkness was trying to do that, but the execution was poor, and they were focused more on, and at the end of the day it did the opposite. I think, like, it made them seem superior. Like, they're the white saviors of this poor, I think it's African country. While this one, I think, does a better job at it, showing its faults and how you can easily get seduced by it and get trapped in this cycle, because there's a lot of things that on the surface they seem great. Like, Robin he has this now cushy life. He gets this education. He always has food and shelter. He has friends. He has clothes. He has a great life. He's privileged. And I think there are probably a lot more people in that position where they are privileged and they are fortunate. And it's hard. And, you can't blame them for liking that they're privileged because they are comfortable and it's easy. And, so I think it's easier for them to get caught up in that. And Robin's in that position where he sees what's going on. He sees how they're exploiting his country, his birthplace. And I mean, at one point, so I'm at the time when they're almost done with they're at their last year at Oxford at Babel, and right before that they get to go to a certain country and be interpreters. In this case, they actually go to Canton, where Robin is originally from. Well, she's already struggling with that because that doesn't feel like home. He doesn't have that desire that Rami has, which that comes between them. They start having their differences start to come out. But anyway, so he gets there and they are doing this program. They're trying to, these Englishmen are trying to establish a trade between China and them. And they're using Robin to help them because Robin can speak the language. He's the interpreter. And, they want to give them trade opium, because back then in 1800s, that was the drug. But the Chinamen don't want to trade with them. This emperor doesn't want to trade with these English gentlemen. And, they're trying to, the Englishmen are talking about this, and they're very critical of the Chinese and say, they don't trust them, they don't like them. They say a lot of harsh things about them. And, Robin, of course, being from there, gets defensive. Is like, but I am one of them. I am a Chinaman. And the guy running the thing looks at him like, doesn't know how to respond. He's silent, but then he laughs. They're like, no, you're not. And it's just like, yeah, he is. He was born here. But he looks white. That isn't an issue in the beginning. That's talked about in the beginning of the book, where when we're introduced to Rami, who experiences a lot of hatred and prejudice, and people asking dumb questions about, and thinking he's dirty, and not wanting anything to do with him, treating him like a slave, like a servant, and just very dismissive of him and disgusted by him, and he can't go out in public. He has to be very careful. And they think, why are you at Oxford? While Robin can get away with blending in because he looks white. He looks half white, so he can blend in more easily. So that does become an issue between the two of them. And it shows they're different. And him and Rami have very different reactions. Rami is angry. He wants to fight back. He's a hothead. He's has a hot head. He's very tempered. He's always wanting to defend himself. He's a fighter, and he gets angry really easily when people treat him like shit. Which, yeah, no, you can't blame him. While Robin is kind of more passive, and he just doesn't want to deal with the conflict. He's like, I'm just gonna be quiet and submissive, and in which probably stems partly from how Professor Lovell would treat him. The one time he lost his temper because Robin got caught up in reading this book he loved, he was really enjoying it, but he was late for one of his lessons before he went to Oxford. So basically, that's the first time Professor Lovell, you should be grateful, you should be appreciative, how dare you? And he basically spanked him. And it's one thing to scold someone because they were disrespectful, or that they made the person that this tutor, in this case the tutor, showed up to teach him, and then he doesn't show up. He's late and ends up missing his tutoring almost misses his tutoring session. It's one thing to be punish him in a way that there needed to be consequences, in a sense that he kept this person waiting for him, and Professor Lovell was paying for it. But to hit the kid and to be yelling at him, he was too extreme about it, and that pissed me off. That infuriated me, because his type of punishment did not balance out. Like, yes, there probably needs to be some consequences because, Robin, like, this guy shows up to take his time to teach him, to educate him. And the kid was late. He didn't show up. And Lovell spent the money for this tutor. So yeah, that was disrespectful in a sense, but he's also just a kid. Was caught up in a hobby that he loves, a hobby that I love. And there should have been, consequences, but not the kind of consequences he received. Those were extreme. Like, they acted like he did something so horrible. Like, I don't even know. I can't think of an example. And the ends don't justify the means. Like, the way he treats in that moment. Now, that was the only time because Robin has been like, ever since that incident, he has made sure that he's always studying. He's always on time. He was always on time for his tutors. He made sure he was disciplined. He worked hard because he was scared and he didn't want to. So that's why, and now ever since then, his reaction is flight. What is, I can't, what's the word? Something that's flight. Like that reaction you get. I can't remember what it is, what the phrase is. But, so hence why him and Rami have very different reactions to how they respond to this, all the prejudice against them, all the hatred towards them. But yeah, Lovell just, ever since that scene, like, before I was just like, I would roll my eyes and I was kind of annoyed by him because he was very cold to Robin. And he just seemed like one of those people that pretended to be all charming and nice to Robin, but he didn't really mean it. He didn't care about him. But then he goes to that extreme of punishing him in a way that I think was unjust and messed up. So back to the other thing. So he will essentially like turn things around to act like Robin is in the wrong for questioning the system. And he will tell, and like when he basically reminds him, you're enjoying this, you get all this privileged stuff, and you're going to Oxford, you're loving it and everything, so you have no right to complain. And I think, like I said, I think there are a lot of people that are in that kind of position where they're, they realize that it's not fair and unjust system, but they're also in a position where they're comfortable, they do get to enjoy it, they're on the side of privilege. And it's a hard position, like, I mean, it's worse when you're not on the side of privilege. I mean, I get that. But I think it's also hard when you're straddling that line, because when you're aware of it, because it's like, as long as you're someone with a conscience, you're gonna feel guilty and constantly punish yourself for it. And you're gonna try to sweep it under the rug, but then you're always gonna come back to that feeling, that weight of guilt, but having a hard time letting go of your privilege. And I know a lot of people would roll their eyes at that and dismiss it, like, how can you, oh really, you're the weight of privilege, it's so terrible. And I know that people would roll their eyes at that, but I think sometimes that weight can be hard too. I mean, yeah, your life isn't as terrible, and you're very in this cushiony life and you're protective and safe, but both sides are always gonna be on your case and always hate you and resent you and judge you and make you feel guilty. And I think you punish yourself more than those people, even if they don't agree, and those people will think, oh, like, I think no one can punish yourself, and unless you're a person that just has no conscience, I think people tend to punish themselves more. I mean, unless you are, and not just not necessarily no conscience, but if you're also a person that's like sees yourself as, I do no wrong, I'm, like, or you're at least someone who has, you have a conscience, but you're like, I'm trying to think of how I want to say this. You're someone who's, you at least feel like you're doing what you can, and you know that you can't change everything, but you can try in small ways. I think there's those people won't necessarily feel at the weight, won't necessarily guilt trip themselves, but I think won't punish themselves. But there are people that I think that they feel like those people, and Robin I think is one of those people that feels like he could do more, but then he also enjoys his life because he's safe. He feels like I'm trying to survive. And I think it's unfair to get mad at those people that are trying to survive. Because not everybody can be a hero. Not everyone can, fight the good fight. And not everyone can be, self-righteous or like be willing to risk. It's not easy to ask someone to make that risk. Like to do and to actually take the risk. It is not easy. It's not so simple. There's no black and white answer. And I just don't like how when characters like, Professor Lovell, or another thing I've noticed that is Griffin, the other character that he comes across who leads the secret society that Robin gets mixed up in, the Hermes Society. Griffin is no better than Lovell. It's just he's on the opposite side. He's on the opposite side of the situation. And he thinks that he's the hero. He's, and he's very self-righteous, but he acts like he's better, and he's not. I think he's just as bad as Lovell. Like, they act like one is better, one is the villain here. Like, there's, in fact, at one point, Robin and Professor Lovell have this discussion. He's like, you have to pick a side, and you have to decide who, think about who the real villain is. And it's like, you're both villains. You both act like one is better than the other, but no, you are both villains. They are no different than each other in how they pressure Robin, how they guilt trip him, and how they judge him, and how they use him and exploit the kid. And it's just that they're on opposite sides. They have opposite thoughts on the situation. And no, they're not different. And I want Robin to point that out. I would love for Robin to say, wow, you guys are just the same. And he hasn't. I don't know if he ever will at this point of the story, but I would love for him to say to one of them, like, wow, you're exactly the same. Neither one of you is different. You're forcing me to pick a side. But the problem is neither one of them will listen. That's one of the things they have in common. Neither one of them listens. They are so stubborn about their way of thinking that they will never listen. They do not see the gray areas. The whole issue is black and white. There's the right way and there's the wrong way between the two of them. And yeah, maybe at the end of the day, one way is more just than the other. But there's definitely... But I also feel like it's not that simple. And I feel like both sides are taking extreme. And he's in the middle of a war between these two people. And it's kind of hard to be the people in the middle. No one will let you be in the middle, and you have to pick a side. But anyway, but I love how this is exploring not just language, but colonization, and how these, and I know a lot of people criticize this book as it being very on the nose and very in your face, but I love it. I'm enjoying this. It's hard for me to explain what I don't like in that. I don't like the ones that are obviously, I like the ones that kind of interweave it between an actual story, that, when it's a story, even if it's still on the nose to people, and still I don't like when people tell you exactly what to think, and that's not how I don't think she's telling us what to think necessarily. She's just giving us food for thought. Yeah, it's not subtle, but I also, that's how, but I think there are a lot of people that it's more easier if it's not, it's more easier for them to get the message. And but anyway, which, by the way, I am so excited about her next book. Although, like, I'm trying not to worry about this because reading is so subjective and we all have different tastes. And just because something works for that someone considers something the worst book doesn't mean it's going to be the worst book for me. But I've been seeing a lot of people not happy with Calabasas by her. And part of me is like trying so hard to ignore that and be like, well, just because they don't love it or they hate it does not mean I'm gonna feel the same way. Because I'm so eager for it, I'm so excited for it. And I mean, I loved Yellowface and I didn't think I would like that one, but I am really enjoying it. I mean, I'm not gonna go buy it because I don't read a lot of contemporary. I don't read contemporary that often. I mean, I'll make exceptions here and there, like, you know. But anyway, so, and I'm still excited, and I'm just, every time I see it, oh, this is the worst book ever, it just makes me like a little wince a little bit, because it's like, should I not buy it? You know, should I not ask for it to someone to buy it for me? And I'm like, no, I love I've loved everyone for books, and it's subjective. I mean, and you know, I mean, maybe if anything, if I am really worried, then maybe I should just wait and ask for it as a gift instead of buying it, so that I'm not spending the money. Of course, I would still, obviously, I'm not saying I wouldn't feel bad if I asked someone to spend their money, but then most of the people, a lot of my friends and family who buy me books, they don't, unless I remind them, they're not going to remember if they bought me something. You know, I mean, that's what my sister essentially said, like, and my mom said it too. Now, Terry, I don't know, maybe she does remember. I mean, like, especially if it's something that she's read, then she might remember. Like, the Pillow Book, for instance, I think she said that she read that, so she might remember, and I know that, but yeah, but anyway, like, so, I mean, I still really want to buy it. I want to read it, and it's a long book, I can tell you that, so no, I'm not going to just borrow it from the library, because then I have to keep renewing it, and I can't take my time with it or read it at my own pace, because I'll be like, oh, I have to return it at some point. So even though, yeah, and yes, again, as I was saying, I'm aware about you can renew books, but I don't want to have to keep doing that. So at the moment, I still am interested in buying it, and it is on my wish list. So we will see. But yeah, I'm nervous. You know, every time I see this is the worst book ever, I hated it. It was so disappointing. I mean, then there are some people, well, really, it's only been two people saying that, and only one of them that I've seen, or at least that I've seen so far, and only, you know, one of them I didn't watch, and one of them was one of the people that I was listening to their podcast and their YouTube, and their podcast is on YouTube, so you can watch it or listen to the podcast, and she had just said that the book wasn't for her, and other people might love it, and she's still excited to see what R.F. Kong does next. So it's really, I'm making it all dramatic and everything, but it's real. I mean, it really is only two people so far that I've seen say that. And the podcaster had, you know, the way they talked about it still got me excited all over again. So it's just, you know, I'm very sensitive. Anyway. But yeah, so I'm almost done with this. But I'm having so much fun with this. I'm loving it. And also, about Calabasas, I do wonder if I should read. I have thought about finally using this as a motivation to get back to Dante's Divine Comedy, because I think that R.F. Kong was inspired by Inferno. I think that's what I heard. So currently, so I'm also reading Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. And what's really cool about this one is, first of all, as I said last time, it was kind of cool, even though, yeah, I also said, you know, it was kind of cool seeing that this edition had the end pages all colored, painted, like a film strip, but it's red. But, of course, at the same time, I said I have mixed feelings about that, because I think it's cool, but at the same time, every book has an aesthetic like that, like where they paint the edges, and it's like, is it special anymore? But it was kind of fun to see that. So this, I don't know if I told you what this was about, but so there's there's two timelines. There's the modern timeline, I mean, like the present day timeline, which I don't know when. Is the back? Probably I guess in the 2000s. So there was this horror movie, this film called Horror Movie that was made by these, you know, like I think they're like young adults, college, and actually young adults, not teenagers that are labeled young adults, but actually young adults as in above 18, like maybe college age at the youngest. They back in the 90s, they were making this underground film, horror film. But for some reason, only some of the stuff, the woman who was directing it, I think she's the director, she ended up only uploading a handful of scenes on YouTube and not the whole thing. And there's this whole thing about there were all these rumors about stuff going on in the set, and it was basically one of those cursed films. And years later, in the 2000s, someone has decided they want to reboot it, remake it. And most of the people, the reason why they think it's cursed is because a lot of the people working on it got killed or died, with the exception of one person. The guy known that they had cast as someone called the Thin Kid. They didn't give him, there's no name. And he is our narrator. And it's one, like, and they ask him to be involved in it. And he reluctantly agrees. So it's back and forth between what happened in the 90s when they were making the film and the present day when he's trying to, when the guy is trying to get, because he agreed, he's trying to, talk to the people who are involved in the remake. And it's really cool because what they're doing is not only going back and forth, but also they have copies of the script in the book. And I think that was really cool. So you can read the scenes like the script. So they do the description and then they do the dialogue, and I thought that was really cool. I actually have a script, the Moulin Rouge script. My my mom and dad got me a copy of it one year for Christmas, back when that movie, and I still have it. It's like in a box in the corner of my room. And so I love, when books do that. I think that's always so interesting when they do that. I mean, I don't have a lot of books that do that, but when they do, I think it's really cool when they have the multimedia. But this is interesting because it looks at what people, how people making a film, the whole process and everything of making a film, and you are in the perspective of the Thin Kid and just his trying to go with the flow and be cool with this, and he kind of seems to have very mixed feelings on it. He's trying to be like, just submit to it and just be, okay, just go with it and all that and not question it, and follow the guidelines he's given, which he's not allowed to speak. He has a non-speaking role and he has to wear this rubber mask the whole time, most of the time, and they're doing all this stuff to him that makes him a little uncomfortable, but he's trying to, accept it because this is the filmmaking industry. And the women that are making it, at least one of them, the one who I think is directing it, they're also starring it. People working on the film. So and she just seems so pretentious and so like acts like I'm superior and I'm trying to make art. Like, what is the meaning of this? How they're supposed to interpret it? And it's like she's one of those people that on the one hand I want to smack her and think she needs to chill out and she's being a pretentious bitch, but other times it's like I pity her and and just, but I mostly it's like, chill out, Valentina, okay? That you're not Steven Spielberg. But at least not yet. But I feel like they're, I mean, I imagine there's a lot of people in Hollywood who act like they're so much better and just kind of bully the actors, and unless the actor's some famous person like Brad Pitt or George Clooney or like Meryl Streep or Julia Roberts. Um, I think a lot of the more less famous actors probably can get bullied and pushed around, and and I am so interested in the premise in the of the film that they're making and what they're doing, because they're doing some weird shit to the thin kid. I'm like, why are they doing it? Which I think that's the point. They want you to, like, what is the message of, what is the intention of the film, like what is going on in the film. And of course you're only getting clip scenes, so you don't know. So there's this intrigue, this mystery. And I mean, I definitely, if this was really existed, then I would also probably be one of those people that would look at it and be curious. And I mean, unless there were things, or, and if anything, even if I don't actually watch the clips, if I didn't find the YouTube clips, I would at least watch one of those channels that would make video essays on it. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of those in the story. We just haven't come across it yet. But I guarantee you there probably were. I don't know if maybe our narrator might have mentioned that, because I wouldn't be surprised if in the present day there are people that would discuss the film and do essays on it and just try to analyze it, and like do one of those videos where we're watching this video and we're gonna discuss it, or we're gonna do commentary while we're watching these clips. It also, it's the last part I read showed him going to our narrator going to convention. And you guys know I've been to conventions before I did that, so I recognize all that kind of stuff, and it was kind of fun to get that part. And you're not, in this case, you're in the point of view of the people, the celebrities that are showing up there, doing the people that it's their art that's being exposed, and that they have fans. And he's just so baffled by it and bewildered, and doesn't even think he's going to get a lot of people, because he doesn't see this horror movie as a movie, because they didn't give the people the whole thing. They just, that clips were uploaded on YouTube. Which is interesting. I'm wondering why. That's one of the questions, like, why did Valentina do it? Is it because of fame, or like, was it some pretentious reason, like, or was she trying to, I mean, part of me thinks that, she was probably just trying to get attention, but we don't know. There might be other reasons why she uploaded only those scenes. I mean, the obvious one would be to get attention and still to get her film out there. So maybe the answer is obvious, but yeah, that whole scene of him at the convention, and one of the, you have a guy, like, he's sitting next to these guys, this one guy he's an author, and he's labeled as the next Stephen King, which you see that all the time, where someone says, oh, this person is going to be the next so-and-so, or this is going to be the next big thing, this is going to be the next Game of Thrones. And you also see, and then there is a guy who plays Jason. He's shown up, and they think he's really obnoxious and annoying. He's doing all these really obnoxious things. So I think it's really cool and really fun to see the other side. The side of, that we will never, as con goers, unless we get into the business, we're not going to know about the side, when these people, before all of us come bombarding in and lining up, what these people are thinking. And you gotta wonder, and I kept wondering the whole time, I hope I never do anything that, people will mock or make fun of or make comment on after I leave, like, or be thinking things about me that are kind of, making fun of me, or, mean-spirited, or judging me in some way. Like, I'm like, one of those people that they have a label for. They say, I'm that kind of person, or, because he's, of course, you're seeing, he's observing everybody that approaches him. And that they don't really, the book doesn't really have chapters. It just has sections. So that section, that little chapter said, that a guy approached him and was like, let me, was trying to prove, and he asked him a question. And there's these things where it was like, oh, he's trying to prove it was fake. It wasn't real. And like the last guy he encounters before we move on to going to the next chapter is like, it ends with this guy who approaches him, and you can tell he's one of those guys, those assholes who's like, oh, I know it was fake, it wasn't real, and I'm gonna prove it. Like those annoying people that it's just like, yeah, because it's a film. It's not supposed to be real. They're supposed to just pretend it's real, like make it as real as you can be, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's not actually real. But yeah, so this is so like, it's interesting to see this underground world. This, like, on the one hand, I can, in a small way, I recognize it, and I can kind of relate to it, or at least I'm sort of been not on the inside I've kind of been on the inside, but I've never been that much inside. So it's, if that makes any sense. I don't know if I'm making any sense at all. But it's so far it's really fun to read this and explore this kind of, and it's also fun to get the whole script, scene, like bits and pieces of the script. And it's fun to read those. But anyway, I'll probably do a separate review of this one. We will see. This is actually my second Paul Tremblay, because I did read Cabin at the End of the World. And no, I haven't seen the adaptation yet. My parents did, though. But I never watched it. I need to watch it. I should watch it this Halloween, but I haven't yet. But some of their, like, Paul Bear's Club, that's one I'm interested. The Beast You Are, there's A Head Full of Ghosts. There's a lot of Paul, like, I'd be curious. There's probably not one Paul Tremblay. I mean, there might be, like, I don't know if there's any of these that I wouldn't be somewhat interested in. This is interesting. No Sleep Till Wonderland and The Little Sleep, which I'm thinking of, like, The Big Sleep, or The Big Sleep. I think there's a book called that, or a movie called that, and I'm wondering if that title is a reference to that. I mean, maybe I'm misremembering, and there's Lana, but I think there is a movie or a book or something called The Big Sleep. But yeah, I am also reading on my Kindle, which is, I got some horror, once I finished, Of Light and Darkness by, Ryan Cahill, the second book in the Bound and the Broken series. After I finished that, I got some horror books. I got Horseman, A Tale of Sleepy Hollow. I got Exile, which is a novella in the Bound and the Broken series, because Ryan Cahill himself recommends you reading that one first before reading the third book. So I got that. And then I got, there's one more book. Oh, Pen Pal. I can't think of the author at the moment, but my goal is to get some horror books. And I thought about getting that one, The Halloween Tree, but I haven't yet. My nephew has it, so I got it for them. But, yeah, I think because my mom did a little Halloween little gift thing, a little care package, so I got that we sent that to them, Halloween Tree, I think. So I thought about getting it, but I ended up not getting it. I still at some point might get it. I mean, I could get it even if, because I don't have to get horror books only in October. I can get horror books anytime. But anyway, so because I started reading Horseman, A Sleepy Hollow Tale by Christina Henry, because that's, that reminds me of Halloween. It's very Halloweeny. And so this one is kind of different. It's not a retelling necessarily. It's because it's about the next generation in the story. The story of Headless Horseman. And like it's kind of debating, is the Headless Horseman real in this version? Or is this just a myth? Like, are we gonna, or is it like another ghost? There's suggestions of that in the story. So I'm curious to find out, is the Headless Horseman. I'd be kind of disappointed if it turns out that Christina Henry goes the route of, oh, the Headless Horseman isn't real, and the girl, she was just imagining things. That it was all, just in their imaginations. Like, I'd be kind of disappointed if it didn't go the creepy route of either having the Headless Horseman or at least having another ghost involved, another creature, another creature of myth. But it's interesting. It's different from the one that, and it's obviously different from the spell book of Katrina Van Tassel, which had a more romantic approach and more tragic. I mean, there is tragedy in this version. So it's more, so like I said, the difference is there's more of a romantic feel to the spellbook of Katrina Van Tassel than the other one. Now I think with this one it's debatable if I'm gonna be happy with the ending or not, because like I said, I would be disappointed if it turned out that, oh, it's not supernatural at all, there's no such thing as ghosts and all that. That I would be disappointed. So if it went that route, then I'd be disappointed. Because I was thinking about, I did watch, there was a video on YouTube that I watched that was on its unpopular history about unpopular history, something like that, where she talked about the whole Headless Horseman and the Sleepy Hollow legend and everything, and the history of it, and the history of Washington Irving, the author of the original story. And she did talk about how, all the different versions of the story, they go back and forth between, like, some people go the route of, oh, the Headless Horseman is real, he is a real ghost and everything, but then some people kind of go about, like, the original story, in the original story, it was like, oh, it wasn't actually real, which is kind of part of what disappointed me about the original story. And that Disney cartoon, if you've seen it, the Ichabod and Mr. Toad, in that one, they go the route of, like, in fact, she did a freeze frame of the clip that kind of proves or leans towards it not being real. And then it was all in Ichabod's head. And it was which is kind of disappointing. I mean, it's funny. It's funny how, like, some classics are outsurvive, like, people are more into the retellings and the different versions that people have out there now, and the adaptations and all that. Like, but while the original story gets lost. Like, I think there's a few of those, for me at least, where the original story, I read it and then I end up getting disappointed because it's not like the adaptations or the retellings. I mean, like, for me, one of those is not just Sleepy Hollow, but Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I was kind of disappointed. It was, like, first of all, too short, and then I didn't like the narration approach. Like, it was told from the perspective of people observing this situation and this monster and everything, and it turned out it wasn't actually, like, which limited things. You weren't really in the thick of the creepy stuff and the horror and all that. And then Frankenstein was one that had the opposite effect, where I think I was kind of mad at all the different adaptations. Like, Frankenstein's one of those ones where it did what normally you would think would happen, where the book is considered better for me. While there's a lot of classics where it's the complete opposite, where the adaptations and the retellings are better. For that, I enjoy those more. Even more than the original source material. Of course, you also have the weird situations where, yeah, the adaptations are very different from the book, but I kind of like both. And Wicked comes to mind as that example for that, where I love both versions. Well, like, I love the book Wicked, but then I love the musical, and I'm enjoying the movie. So that's a weird situation where I like both. I'm like, okay, yeah, you gotta separate them. But this one I'm kind of liking a little bit more than the Spellbook of Katrina Van Tassel. I mean, I'm still enjoying it, and it's partly influenced by me not being satisfied with the ending, being sad about the ending, how it turns out. It was like one of these things where I wanted it to turn out one way, but then it doesn't, and I'm like, no, why? I mean, it's still a good book. It's just I wanted to go in a different direction. But this one is a little more interesting with the story and everything, because it approaches it, we have the next generation, but we still have the original characters are involved in the story. The original characters. And you kind of look at them in a different way. She does something different with the characters. Like, gives them a little bit more depth. Like, I hated Brom. In all versions, I've hated Brom. I mean, I did, in the Spellbook of Katrina Van Tassel, I kind of pitied him and felt bad for him. But in this one, I actually kind of like him. In this one, Christine Henry actually makes him likable and shows that he has changed, and he's a little more mature and a caring person. In some ways, he's still, Mr. Strong, and I'm the boss, and I'm all badass and everything. He still has some of that, but he's kind of, you see that he has matured a little bit, and it's, of course, you get told about things that happened after the original story, like, have the things that happened in between that led to where they are today. That kind of probably explains why he has matured in a big way. And generally people are inevitably mature and grow as people, or at least you hope they do. But, yeah, I'm enjoying it. Although, like, I don't like Katrina. Well, Katrina's character kind of is the opposite. Like, right now, I'm not loving her at the moment. Like, other adaptations, I liked her. And then in the original, I didn't like her, but I didn't hate her. I wasn't that frustrated with her character. I was, like, rolling my eyes and just like, of course. But wow, this one, I'm kind of frustrated with her. But then maybe it's partly because of the time period and how, this is the way she thinks. She can't help how she thinks and feels. And then, after the events and what happens in between the events of the original story and present day, like, at the same time, I can kind of understand. But it doesn't make me any less frustrated with her character. And kind of annoyed with her on behalf of our main character, Ben. But yes, I'm enjoying that. And I don't know what I'll read next, because I want to, I have all these other books I haven't started yet, and I feel like, let me read at least one of those before I read one of the other two new books I got. I only, I started it because I wanted to read it now, and because it feels very Halloween-y. So that's why I was like, let me read while the other ones, one of them is Pen Pal is a horror book, but I don't have to read it, like, during Halloween. I can read horror anytime I want. And then the other one is not a horror book at all. It's part of the series, and in that case, I do want to read it soon, but I'll have to read it right now. But anyway, so let me real quick show you what I've, I think I've already showed you one of these books. But so I got The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. And he's an author I want to get back to. And because I think it was Elliot Brooks who said, you probably want to read his first trilogy before you get into The Devils. So luckily, I don't know if that also includes some of his other works. But I did read the first trilogy, so I think I'll be okay. Because I don't know if that means that there are some references to the first trilogy in this book. Although I don't remember. But then, I don't know, sometimes people say that, and I'm like, and sometimes I feel like you can still enjoy a book. I mean, there's some situations where there are things that you won't know that need to be explained. Like, because, I said, with Wax and Wayne series, you gotta read the first Mistborn trilogy before you read that. Because Brandon Sanderson is not going to explain the magic system and all that. And then there's the history, and there's all these references to the characters from the previous book, the previous trilogy. So I feel like you gotta... So in that case, I feel like that's one of those things where you might want to read the original series trilogy first. Because I don't know if you might get confused, and it might ruin some of your enjoyment of Wax and Wayne. But I'm excited to read this. And again, I think it was Elliot Brooks who said this was a good read for spooky season. Okay, so I'm gonna read the back because I don't remember what the premise is. Holy work sometimes requires unholy deeds. That's I can't think of the word. Okay, Brother Diaz has been summoned to the Sacred City, where he is certain accommodation and grand holy assignment awaits him, but his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers and practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters. The mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from them all in order to achieve its righteous ends. Elves lurk at our borders and hunger for our flesh, while greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions and comfort. With an epic hellish journey before him, it's a good thing Brother Diaz has the devils on his side. Which, definitely, I kind of understand why this would be good for this time of year to read. And then we have... This is one of the books that I kept eyeing whenever I went to Books A Million. So I finally bought it yesterday. Literally yesterday. So let me read to the back. 25-year-old Calla Williams is struggling since becoming the guardian to her brother Jamie. Calla is overwhelmed and tired of being the one who makes sacrifices to keep the family together. Jamie, full of good-natured 16-year-old recklessness, is usually off fighting for what matters to him, or getting into mischief. Often at the same time, Dre, their brother, promised he would help to raise Jamie, but now that the ink is dry on the paperwork, in a classic middle-class fashion, he's off doing his own thing. I mean, middle child, I don't know why the word class got in my head. Middle child fashion. He's off doing his own thing, and through it all, the nightmare never stops haunting Calla, recurring images of brothers dying that she's powerless to stop. When Jamie's actions at a protest spiral out of control, the siblings must go on the run, taking refuge in a remote cabin that looks like it belongs on a slasher movie poster rather than Airbnb. The siblings now face a new threat where their lives and reality hang in the balance. Calla always warned her brothers about her nightmares. They really should have listened. Dun dun dun. So, the sentence on the top says, by turns hilarious and terrifying, Listen to Your Sister is a surprising, big-hearted tale of speculative horror about the nightmares that haunt us and the family bonds that hold us together for those who love Jordan Peele's films Stranger Things and The Other Black Girl. So I'm excited to read this. So we will see. Sorry. And no Victorian literature. I'm back to horror again, like I did last year. So maybe next year, I'll get back into the Victorian literature for Victober. But I mean, I might still squeeze these in. Like there's Lady Susan and Shirley. Or I might just save those for November. But I just can't help it. Sometimes for a while I was into Victober and everything. But then, like, around this time of year, I got back into wanting to read horror stuff because this is the only time of year where people really focus on the horror. So that is what I'm currently reading. Would love to know what you guys are reading. Are you reading any horror books, or is horror not your thing? Like, is horror just not something you enjoy? Either way, I would love to hear what you're reading, even if you read horror or not. And I hope you enjoyed my, updating you guys, and I will talk to y'all later. All right, bye!